Our lives are an ongoing dialogue between our heart and our minds. And what characterizes a good dialogue, a good conversation, is equality and balance of both participants in the conversation. A reciprocal energy exchange, where one side isn't dominating the other side, where it's even and equal. And in the sense that I'm talking about here, what I'm talking about is an even communication between the heart and the mind. In other words, it's called mind-heart coherence, where when you live your life overly invested in the heart or overly invested in the mind, you kind of, in a way, operate from this like spiritually lopsided expression, where you're deficient in a other important area of your life, and being overly invested in one or the other results in messy actions, in actions that result in your pain or the pain of others. You know, and you think about being overly involved in the heart, you could think of maybe overly extending yourself and overly offering yourself to all these people. And even offering yourself again and again and again to people who maybe aren't treating you very well. If you think of being overly invested in the mind, you may think of somebody who's a bit cold, cynical, bitter, analytical, superstitious, not willing to let go into the passions of life for they fear being hurt by them. So what I want to emphasize in this video is the importance of that communication between the heart and the mind, and not being afraid to live in both simultaneously, because it's not healthy to be in one or the other. You know, and there's a beautiful quote that I've heard where it's, the biggest journey you'll ever make are the 9 inches from your mind to your heart. Now this is huge, but something I want to add to this, sorry, I got something in my eye, is the importance of a healthy, functioning intellect. Where there's sort of a negative connotation to the mind, where you gotta get out of the mind, kill the ego, the intellect is bad, you need to be in the heart and the emotions. That's partially true. But it comes full circle, where when you really begin to develop, you begin to see into the actual purpose and nature of the mind. It's said the mind is a beautiful servant, but a lousy master. So when the mind is something that you need to get out of and loosen the holds of, that's when the mind is a master, and you need to sink into the dimension of feeling, of flowing, of loving, of empathy, of intuition. Not thinking as much, not pushing and resisting and trying to intellectualize everything, but rather going into a flow of emotion. But once you begin to develop that emotional quality of yourself, you begin to realize that that very mind faculty that you sort of tried to push away begins to be of service to you in particular. And that's really what I want to emphasize here, is without the mind, it's all love. But it all being love may result in you individually being hurt, abused, used, misled, walked on, taken advantage of, cast aside. So the mind is where your personal well-being comes into the picture. The mind is the thing that says, I'm never loving again, because when I opened my heart and fell in love and they broke my heart, screw that. They screwed me over, it's all the same. I'm never loving again. You know, I'm never trusting again. The mind is the thing, no, God isn't real, you know, something bad happened in the past, no, God isn't real, and it's this stern stiffness. If I can't imagine it, then it's not real. If it doesn't rationally and logically make sense, then it's hogwash, it's nonsense. That mind begins to toxify. It begins to become the master of you. And what's needed as a remedy in that moment is to drop into the heart, drop into the feeling dimension. Now I've said a lot, and I want to share a couple stories with you to sort of illustrate this thing that I'm talking about of the importance of the balance between the heart and the mind. So there was this story of this woman, and she moved to this new city, and her job was in walking distance. And on her morning walks to her job, every morning she would pass by this homeless person. And the homeless person's asked, "Hey, you got any money? Can you spare any change? Any of that?" You know what I mean? And so the first morning she sees him, she gives him a quarter. And then the next morning going by, she gives him a quarter. And then the third morning going by, she starts to give him a little bit more. She gives him $1. And she said she began to develop a weekly budget where every week, every day, every morning on her way to work, she would give this homeless person $1.25, or a quarter a day. And it was $1.25 budget every week or whatever it was. So she budgeted in giving this homeless man money every single day. But then suddenly, this woman realized that she had never acknowledged the existence of that homeless man. She'd never appreciated the fact that he is a human being, suffering, homeless, alone. And she felt that the reason she didn't acknowledge the reality of him as a human being was because she was afraid. There was this fear. And she thought to herself, what am I afraid of? And she thought, I'm not afraid that he's gonna rob me. I'm not afraid that he's gonna hurt me. I'm not afraid that he's gonna abuse me. What is it that I'm afraid of? And what she realized, guys, is that the reason she was afraid was because she thought to herself, if I acknowledge the existence of this human being, I'm afraid that he's gonna end up sleeping in my living room. That's it right there. The mind saying no to the heart because the heart is unconditional. Love, true love, in its purest, most distilled form is unconditional. Now, I'm not talking about oh, I love you unconditionally, baby. No, I'm talking real unconditional love. You say you love somebody unconditional and they say, okay, well, what if I go and cheat on you? You probably wouldn't love them then. Unconditional love means there are no conditions upon which the love is based upon. It's unconditional. And what this woman was afraid of was her unconditional heart. The seeming infinite giving. Where how could I turn down this homeless man? I want to take him home with me and be there for him and be his friend and give him a roof over his head and give him all the money he needs. And you think about like when you're in love, your loved one asks, can I use your toothbrush? And you're like, oh my God, I'd be honored. Do you need it? Hey, can you take the trash out? I'd love to take the trash out. Can I get you anything at the store? Do you need anything? How can I help you? It's this pouring. It's this outpouring. The quality, the very nature of the heart gives. But see, here's the click. The heart gives in spite of the well-being of the one whose heart is giving, if you can hear that. Where when you're completely in love, in your heart, you will give to an extent that may go against your individual well-being. You will give to people who don't treat you right. You will give to things and situations that aren't conducive to your well-being. You will overextend yourself, overextend yourself. According to the heart, it's not overextending. It's the nature of itself. But see, the mind has your best interest in mind. The mind is the thing that woman giving money to the homeless man realized, well, wait a minute. I can't let go into the love that I have for this homeless man because he's going to end up in my living room. The mind creates a boundary. The mind creates a protective shield around itself. But see, either or, being fully in the heart or fully in the mind is not healthy. What's required is a dance between the two, a communication between the two. Where, like I was mentioning earlier, I feel like, to be honest, this culture the world that we live in right now, is a good example of a toxicity of mind. Toxicity meaning too much of. I feel like we spend our time thinking way too much. We do way too much thinking, way too much intellectualizing, way too much planning, way too much looking into. And what this world could benefit the most from right now is to let the thinking go for just a little bit and feel. Feel yourself. Feel the energy of your body and the energy of earth and the energy of those around you. Come into heart. Come into compassion. Come into empathy. Let's feel and reflect on the qualities of how much we've been through. So, I feel like what a lot of us need right now is to be able to touch deeper into the heart dimension, the heart quality. But with that being said, I do want to emphasize the importance of the healthy mind. The mind acting as a servant right by your side. Like I was saying, it comes full circle. Now, to share with you a sort of personal experience of this, I'm literally like just coming into this new chapter of my life where for years, guys, I've been being involved in spirituality and going into states of absolute bliss and existential ecstasy and joy and empathy and feeling the unity between me and the world and you and everybody. What that resulted in was an endless giving, an endless offering, where relationships that I've had, both romantic, friendships, family, I offered. And when they started to not treat me well, what did I do? I kept offering. Because being in the state of love that I was in and not having a grounded foundation of mind keeping me safe, I'd completely abandoned that, essentially, and being in that powerful and that deep of a state of love allowed me to see right through the toxicity of somebody and see their innocent, tender, suffering soul. And even just saying this now, I can feel it. Where when somebody treats you like crap, it's because they're suffering. I mean, so long as you're leading a life of love yourself, when somebody treats you like crap, when somebody uses you, abuses you, misleads you, is mean to you, puts you down, that's their inner heart saying, I am hurting. And so when I was in relationships and people would treat me like crap, I just wanted to love them more. I wanted to love them into being better. And what this resulted in, and this might seem like a beautiful incentive, and at heart it is, but it's also missing a very key component, which is I am included in love, in compassion. That is the hallmark thing that characterizes this new chapter of my life that I've moved into is, holy crap, I am just as important in this field of compassion. And what I've been doing by losing sight of my mind faculty has been giving and overly giving to people who in the moment don't necessarily deserve it or need it. And who needs it most in those moments is myself. And so by not having an intact mental quality of who I am and what my worth is and what my value is, this resulted in me endlessly giving and giving and giving, and then I get my heart broken and I'm like, oh my God, this is so painful, this is so horrible, why'd they leave me, if only they could awaken, and it was just all this ooey gooey, dramatic, emotional stuff. But had I considered myself, I would have never gotten myself into that mess. But see, I understand that it was through getting myself into that and being used and abandoned and misled and all this stuff, manipulated, all this stuff, that was what allowed this eventual, those things, those experiences acted as catalysts that catalyzed this eventual awakening where I essentially realized, oh my God, I matter too. I wasn't even aware of the me that matters because I was so busy in the heart, loving, 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 that I forgot that I need love too. And what it looked like to imbue that same love to me was to say bye to certain people, was to stop being so available to everybody always, was to stop trying to love everybody into being better, but rather just be me. Stand strong and proudly in me and in who I am. You know, and the mind without heart is arrogance. But the mind with heart is holistic unity. Wisdom, really. Heart-mind coherence is synonymous with wisdom. And when one is out of order, you're going to, like I said in the beginning, you're going to make sloppy, messy decisions that aren't going to be very beneficial for you or other parties involved. When it's too much mind, there's not enough consideration. There's not enough feeling. There's not enough emotional connection. Sometimes all somebody needs is for you to just feel what they're feeling. They don't need an answer. They don't need you to say, well, that's really hard and, this is what I would do. They're not looking for more thoughts and intellect. A lot of the time what people are looking for is like an open vessel to pour into. And you receive it and you say, damn, I feel you. And when we're too mental, when we're too mind-oriented and devoid of heart, we're not considering the qualities of the people around us. We're very rigid and stiff and robotic and brittle. By being solely and exclusively in the mind, you become brittle. And you think of a bridge needs to be able to yield and bend and move and flow to be able to carry the weight of the vehicles and the wind. And same thing with skyscrapers, But if it was brittle and stiff and rigid, which is kind of like a quality of the mind, it'll shatter. It won't be able to support the flow of life. So when we're in just the mind alone, we become rigid and brittle, where anything can push us over. And we're not in tune with our own heart. And we will toxify and destroy relationships in our life and opportunities and potentials because we're not in that feeling dimension. We can't feel the quality of it, And we become arrogant and rude and overthinking, where we live in a world of thought alone. Like right now, you may be solely thinking, but did you know you have a whole body that you can feel? You can feel yourself sitting. You can feel yourself breathing. You can feel yourself being. You can hear. You can feel. It's not all thinking, And when you live in thoughts alone, that's what the world is your thoughts. So you better have a really good narrative and inner dialogue and story of what life is. Otherwise, you're going to be living in a prison of segmented, linear thinking. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people in the world right now could really benefit from tuning into the heart a little bit more. But also, on the opposite side of the coin, when you're solely in the heart, you're going to abandon yourself. You're going to be the nice guy. You're going to offer yourself. You're going to overly offer yourself and be overly available to people that probably don't deserve it, to be completely honest. You're going to be taken for granted, walked on, abused, misled. You're going to become perhaps overly emotional about things that are maybe simple. Little things will swallow you whole. You know? There is such an importance to balancing the two, the heart and the mind, and the heart and the mind. Now let me offer you another story here. This is a story from Ram Dass, an absolutely profound spiritual teacher. He passed in 2019, and but nevertheless, he led a life of extraordinary wisdom and compassion. He shares a story of being in Varanasi in India, which is a very holy site where thousands of people every single year go to die. And it's said that in Hinduism, if you die in Varanasi, it's a very holy place and you gain immediate enlightenment, you know? And he said he was in Varanasi and he saw all these lepers, which are people with leprosy. And, you know, I don't know much about leprosy other than that, you know, your limbs like rot off and shit. And he said he saw this line of lepers, of people with leprosy. And he had a little bit of money in his pocket. And he wanted to give the money to the lepers, one of the lepers. And so he started trying to think of who deserves it more. He said, well, this person right here is missing a hand, but this person over here is missing both their legs and an arm. And this one over here has half their face eaten off, so which one should I really deserves the money? And he said if he tried to rationalize which one deserved the money more based off of those circumstances, he would have lost his mind. Now that is a direct example of living exclusively in the mind. What he needed to do, what Ram Dass did, was completely forget about thinking and just gave some money to somebody. Heart, love, offer, just give. Stop thinking about it and act. Think about that. Think of seeing a group of starving children and you have one bowl of food and they're all on the brink of death. Who do you give it to? How do you determine who deserves it the most? You can't. That is where the mind becomes dysfunctional. That is where the mind falls short. That is where you need to completely surrender to the flow of love itself and allow your actions to be born out of love alone, not thinking and rationalization. It's a profound example when you really think about it. The idea there of you can't rationalize your way into it. You know what I mean? Or having to make any sort of really harsh decision. Do I stay with my toxic partner and keep the kids happy? Or do I leave to save my soul, but potentially destroy the family dynamic for my kids? What do? You can't rationalize it. It's about heart. It's about feeling. You know? And you think about when you're falling in love. You can't rationalize that. You can try. You can push against it. You can fight it, you can resist it, you can try to talk and think yourself out of it, but love just swamps your entire being. Love happens to you. It comes from you. It's an experience. We're all going to go through it. And it's kind of like getting on a train and just rolling. Getting on a roller coaster and it just goes. You know what I mean? I think it was Jim Morrison who said, fearing love because you're afraid of heartbreak is like fearing life because you're afraid of death. But my friends, they're in tandem. They go together. They're one and the same thing. Love implies heartbreak in some way, shape, or form. Life implies death. So when it comes to these kinds of things, this is when it's so important to develop that balance of the heart and the mind. You know, the heart is the thing that sees the homeless man and says, oh my God, I need to get you safe. We need to save you. That's the heart. And then the mind says, wait a minute, I got to go to work. I have a job to go to. You know what I mean? There were certain instances when I was in high school where, you know, somebody was like really having a hard time and I was on my way to class and, you know, she stopped me in the hallway and she was like crying and she's like, can we talk? And she was like really having a rough one. And I said, Absolutely. And I sat down and I skipped class. I didn't even go to class. And I remember the vice principal walked by and he's like, Devin, what are you doing? What are you guys doing out here? And I was like, dude, like, now is not the time for the institution of school and class times. And this girl, this human being is suffering. She needs someone. And see, you can see how they sort of battle each other. The quality of the heart. The quality of the heart is the thing where you get a phone call at 3 a.m. from a loved one saying they're having a really hard time and they need somebody or else things are going to get nasty. And what do? You get your ass up, you get in the car and you drive to them, even if they're 3 hours away. That's the heart. The mind will be like, what are we doing? I'm exhausted right now. They'll be fine. Like, they're 3 hours away. Rationalization, it tries to rationalize it. But the heart is unconditional. Like I said, it's pure love. And in pure love, you individually don't exist. In pure love, my pain is your pain and your pain is my pain. When it's not, when you think of like people who are suffering or homeless in another part of the country, you say, oh, that's really bad for them. But in the dimension of pure love, it's not them. Them is a defense mechanism of the mind to keep the pain separate from you, to keep it out of your body. But when you go into the heart, it's not them, it's us, it's I. I am starving. I am suffering. I need help. And this is why the mind, the sort of immature, undeveloped mind, is afraid of the heart. Because the heart will give it all away. The heart doesn't care. That woman was afraid of her own heart. A lot of us, being unwilling to get in a relationship, are afraid of the vulnerability that is born out of that because we know what'll happen. We won't be able to keep it all straight and neat and pristine and orderly and rational. It's all going to get melted into this love dance, this love soup. And that's scary. It is scary. I literally feel it myself. This sort of, it's this resistance. It's this fear of, oh, this is intense, man. But we can't afford to live in the mind or the heart alone. What we need to do is to develop an equal, reciprocal relationship between the two. Now, see, a lot of us live in the mind, but there are also those who live in the heart. And for those in the heart, they need to develop a stronger sense of self, a stronger sense of who they are and what they are worth, because otherwise they're going to just get used and beaten and trampled on. And when you're living in the heart and somebody tells you to not do that, you don't do it. And when somebody tells you you're not good enough, you'll go, yeah, I'm not good enough, right? I don't want to hurt your feelings, so I'll just agree and agree and agree and agree. That's the toxic quality of just living in the heart alone. And what they need to do is come into a sense of owning who they are and saying, listen, I love and I can love so deeply, but that love is precious. And I'm not just going to give it to anybody all the time, always. My love and my time and my energy is precious and rare. And I'm not just going to offer it all. That is heart-mind coherence. And for those stuck solely in the mind where they're afraid of their own heart and they're afraid to feel their own feelings because they think it says something bad about who they are, what they need to do is allow themselves to feel, allow that pain, allow that love, allow that bliss, allow that sadness, allow that tenderness, allow that intimacy, go into the heart feeling. And see, this is where men and women really offer qualities as teachers to each other. I understand that, within the man is the masculine and the feminine, and within the woman is the masculine and the feminine, but nevertheless, you can represent a man and you can represent a woman, man and woman. And the woman, the feminine, is in representation of the softness, the love, the depth, the ocean of feeling and intuition and energy and flow and growth. The masculine is thought, coherency, logic, thinking, planning, like structure, firmness, and both are needed. You know what I'm saying? The masculine is strength. Both are they're one unit. They're one unit. You know? So if there's anything I want to emphasize in this video, it's the importance of coming into heart-mind coherence. If you're stuck in your mind and you're afraid of your feelings, you want to know what your task is to feel your feelings. If you live as an empath and you're lost in this world of emotion, what you need to do is to create some boundaries. And you do that by coming up into the mind and asserting yourself, standing up for yourself, voicing yourself, drawing a boundary and saying no, not being afraid to say no, not being afraid to lean into the tension. And it's so important. And when you feed, you're overly giving energy in one area. When you feed that energy into the other area, it evens out. It comes into equilibrium. And in that, the love that you were afraid to offer is still present, but it will be given in where it's needed, where it's necessary. You're not going to overly give to people who treat you like crap, you know? And when you need to think and plan and remain firm, you will be. When you come into that coherence, that mind-heart coherence, everything transforms. So don't be afraid to feel, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, because they're both equally important. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. And if you did, consider subscribing and liking, because it goes a really long way and helps me out so much. So with that said, thank you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.